Following that partial success, we felt encouraged then to approach UNESCO to consider establishing a chair. We approached UNESCO in doing so through our UNESCO commissions, but also through the goodwill of UNESCO colleagues in Paris. And we heard a few weeks ago, informally, that UNESCO has approved a chair on community-based research and social responsibility of higher education. And Dr. Badal at the University of Victoria and I in Delhi, we will be co-chairs of this initiative. As bureaucracies go, it will take a few more months before all this is operationalized. I don't have a visiting card to give you today which says UNESCO chair, but that doesn't really matter. I want to use this occasion, this conference, to invite you to look at UNESCO chair as an opportunity, as a mechanism over the next 3-4 years to recognize, as Dr. Sharifa said, to forcefully present a vision of engagement that we cherish and we feel is rooted in the future that we would like to see for all our citizens around Asia and around the world. This may include opportunities for capacity building of new researchers, but I would encourage us to think about capacity building of community leaders and civil society activists as well. They also need capacity enhancement to work in partnerships. They also need support in articulating and systematizing the knowledge that they have gained in practice. That is not going to happen on their own. And therefore, capacity enhancement is one issue that we could work on together. There are many ideas already floating. The second issue is dialogue with our policymakers, dialogue with our national governments, with our research councils in our countries, with regional bodies. This is where ASEAN's network can be very productive. Dialogues with those who can shape, support, and mainstream such work throughout our region and throughout the world. We also hope to see this as an opportunity whereby networks like Pascal, Geyser, a variety of other actors who have begun to pay attention to these issues collectively would find a way to harmonize their activities. We all do different things, and that's our strength. If we all were doing the same thing, it would be repetition. So finally, let me share with you a story that is my experience when I was doing field research for my dissertation. As you may have seen from my biodata, I was very highly qualified as a professional electronics engineer, MBA, doing my Ph.D. in management, decided to understand with management lens the problems of rural poverty and development in India. And I spent a year. I was well prepared to undertake profound research with predetermined research instruments that I had learned and mastered. I was even using computer in those days. It took me precisely 1 week to figure out how ignorant I was. And those I considered as stupid because they were illiterate, how knowledgeable they were. I didn't know how to live in areas which are rural. I didn't know how agriculture took place. I didn't know how food was grown, the food that I used to feed myself and my family. And least of all, I knew that water needed to be collected, and it did not come out of taps. I was having great difficulty in unlearning a lot of things which I had taken for granted. I decided one day that I'm going to now start collecting data. And I ran around with my predetermined, pre-designed questionnaire. Most of the people I approached, who had already known me for a few weeks, would shy away every time I asked them questions related to my questionnaire. And I couldn't understand that till one day an elderly man sort of got hold of me and said, "Son, you look a bit disturbed." I said, "No, nobody wants to give me data." And I look, I told you I'm coming here for Ph.D. Of course I'm helping you, but if I don't do my Ph.D., I'll be doing my thesis. Common predicament for all of us, no? He said, yes, you're coming here for Ph.D., that we remember. But why is nobody giving you data? I said, look, I have this questionnaire, I've even translated local language and asked you questions. People rather than ask questions. They say they're busy, they're this, that, or something. They'll talk to me tomorrow. Nobody talks to me tomorrow. He said, okay. He said, you are living here for a few months already, a few weeks. I said, yeah. And can you see? I said, yes. Can you smell? Of course. Taste? Yeah, here, of course. Those things don't constitute data. Only that which gets into this sheet of paper will be data. I couldn't fathom that. Anyway, I started taking notes of all the things I was observing, all the conversation I was hearing, ethnographic, sort of qualitative, all that words I learned later. Those were not the phrases I learned in my training of research methodology. But the most significant breakthrough came when I said that, thank you very much, now I'm going back, it was a good time, etc., etc. They gave me a special meal, and just before I was going to go to bed and leave next morning, the elderly man again said, "Son, but what have you learned?" Can you share your, he didn't use the phrase findings, but that's what he meant. I said, I thought I'll write them in my thesis and submit them. What do you mean by share what I have learned? Of course, we got into a conversation and we talked about it. But I kept on thinking that it was so natural for him to ask, for the community, that I should be accountable to them for the knowledge I have gained. But it was so stupid of me to see that as an intrusion in my research enterprise. I don't want to repeat that in future. Let's work together to make it possible for next generation of researchers. Thank you very much.